Oh, you snuck up on me. I didn't know you were back. All right, enough coffee time. Let's get started. All right. Okay. This one here is the front, obviously. The front is a little bit different than the back. What we're going to do in the front here is we're going to do the exact same procedure. We're going to come in here with a little screwdriver or pry bar. We're going to pry this back so we can check these slide pins to make sure that they slide properly. As you can see here, the front is a little bit different than the back. You see how the front has these little clips here, and you see how that clip is right inside the brake pad itself? That's because when you apply the brake, the brakes obviously squeeze together. When you take your foot off the brake, these clips here pull that brake pad away from the rotor, and it reduces the drag, so that way it doesn't overheat the rotor and doesn't cause premature glazing of the brake pads and such. As you can see back here, and let's see if I can get you in there. All right, maybe not. All right, let's see. Okay. You see right here? You see this brake pad right here? You see that clip is not in there? It's popped out. That's no good, because that brake pad now stays applied against the rotor, and it actually causes it to have that constant drag on it, which is never good. It causes the rotor to warp and go out of round. So that's one problem which we are going to resolve. We will be changing the hardware on here, only because these pieces right here, they tend to wear out after a while, and you know, you'll have this piece here where it'll just one day just snap off. So it is logical to replace this while you're doing the brakes now anyway. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be replacing the hardware, which I just do on almost every brake job I do anyway, as you all know. All right, so we're going to take out this bolt and this bolt. We're going to take this off to the side. We're going to support it. We're not going to leave it hanging. We are going to take off this mounting bracket here, which has a screw back here, a bolt back here, and another one down in the bottom right on the bottom there. All right, then once we have this out of here, we're going to take this rotor off. Now you can screw a screw in through that hole right there to pop the rotor off. It'll come right out. If that doesn't work, we're changing this rotor anyway. We're going to take a hammer and we're going to beat the back of it a little bit. We're going to get it to pop right off. I did do the one on the other side. It was stuck pretty good, so we'll see how this one goes. So, all right, this is an example of what kind of tools you're going to need to get the job done. You're going to need the bolt on the back of the mounting bracket was extremely tight, so you'll see I'm using a breaker bar in a socket. We need this to actually to push the brake pads back in. This is to clean the hub where the rotor fits onto, and this, as you know, is to persuade that rotor to come off the vehicle. All right, a couple of ratchets we're going to need, and this to hang our rotor out of the way, to hang our caliper out of the way so it doesn't dangle by the hose. And we're going to need some brake cleaner to clean the rotor, and silicone grease to grease up everything before we put it back together. This is the brake hardware kit, which we're going to be replacing also. So, all right, let's get set up and let's get started. Okay, now remember we talked about this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here with our pry bar like this, a pry bar or a large screwdriver, whatever you have, and we're going to pry this caliper back so we can check the slide pins to make sure that everything is sliding okay. We're going to push the brake pad all the way back in. Now this is a double piston in here, so that's why you see me pushing in top and bottom. And as you can see, it pushed in nice and smoothly. And the way you check the slide pins right here now is you just pull this back and forth. See how it slides back and forth? So now we know these slide pins are actually perfect. All right, next thing we're going to do then is we're going to take off these two bolts that hold the caliper to the mounting bracket. Don't lose these bolts because you're going to need to put these back on. Now I might add, if you're trying to take these bolts out right here, and this bolt is not coming out, and this piece in the back is just spinning right here, you could put a wrench on here. It looks like it's probably about a 17 or 18 millimeter. You can hold it with a wrench if you need to. That's not the case here. It's actually coming right out. All right, again, don't lose these. And then we're just going to take the caliper, take it off to the side right here, and just support it up and out of the way. And then these brake pads can come out. And you can see this was actually right down to the indicator. You see how it's shiny right there? It was just starting to touch the indicator. I'm going to take this one off too. Now these bolts in the back here were very tight, so I am going to use a breaker bar to get it loose because it gives me a little more leverage. And it is a half inch drive, just so you know. As you know, with half-inch drive, you can get a little more leverage out of it, so you don't kill yourself trying to get it out. Now we broke them both loose. You don't take one out without making sure the other one is loose, which it is. All right, now don't lose this bolt. We're going to need to reuse it, and of course, do not lose that washer. Sometimes that washer will stick to the back over here, so if it does, just be careful because you will need to put that back on. Remember, don't lose that washer. For now, we're just going to put this on the side, and we're going to change this hardware, but we'll do that momentarily. Now, remember, I said you could put a bolt in here to unscrew it to get that off, or you choose to beat the heck out of it. It comes right off from the back right here. So, let me do that. Take that rotor off, and then just point this out. That's why we're not resurfacing it. You see how that rust lip is on it? With really nothing we could do with that. Okay, now remember we talked about this right here? A lot of rust in here. Okay, we're going to clean this up right inside here where the rotor fits onto. You can use a disc like this to clean it up. You can use a razor blade to clean it up, or you could just get in here with sandpaper, whatever you have. I'm going to use this because I have it. Okay. All right, we're just going to clean it up a little bit. All right, nice and clean now. Now, remember we have, these rotors are like the ones we had in the back. These are actually a premium rotor. They come actually electro something or other. So this portion here, as well as in here, will not rust like the other rotors. So, all right, we're going to clean this up with some brake cleaner. When it's in the warehouse, they have oil on it, so we're going to clean that up a little bit. I'm just going to put this on the car, and I'm going to clean up the other part of it. what I normally do is just screw a lug nut on here just to hold the rotor in place while you're working so you're not fumbling around with it. It's only temporary. Like that. And we're going to clean this. As long as you get most of it off, it's okay. You don't have to get everything off. You never will. So you do the best you can. Alright. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to change the hardware right inside here. And the way you do that is you pull this off, just like this. Right? And then we take this one off right here, just like this. Now, if you have a lot of rust inside here, you'll need to clean it off. It looks like a little bit, but it's really not that bad. So we're just going to put some grease on this, and then we're going to put it all back together. Now, remember how you took it apart. It's very important that this one with the clips goes to the top, all right? Oop, hang on one second. My parts just walked in the door for another job. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now, every place that the new mounting hardware is going to go, you put a little bit of grease on it. Makes it go in a little easier, and it keeps it from rusting any further in the future. Okay. Now, remember, this goes on like this. This one is your bottom one, like that. And we're just going to push this. You didn't see that, did you? Just push it in here like this. Okay. Same thing on the top right here. Just goes right in there like that. Make sure your clips are pushed up in there like that. And that's it. That's all set. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out these slide pins right here. We're going to make sure they go back in the same holes, right? Because one of them has the rubber on here, the other one doesn't. So we just hold that like that. Take out your pin. Clean off any of the old grease that's on there. Then put the new grease on here like that. Put it back in. Make sure when you push it in that it pops back up into that spot right there. Okay, just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this one here. Pull it out. Clean off all that old grease. Put some new grease on here like this. And then put it back in where you previously took it out. Again, make sure it pops up, which it did. Now, any place that the brake pad is going to touch, you put this grease. Okay? Just like that. Okay. Now in this particular case, we're not going to put the brake pads in here. We're going to mount the bracket back on first. A lot of times you'll know from my other videos, I do that first with the brake pads. Alright, so now we put that back in there. And we screw bolts in by hand. You can screw them in as far as you can by hand. Alright, so now our mounting bracket is back on, our hardware is in, and it's lubricated every place it's supposed to be. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to take the caliper. Most of the time I don't do this, but we're going to do it in this case. I want to make sure these pistons are pushed back in all the way. They don't look like they're in all the way. And the way we do this, put a brake pad here and here. And then we use our tool like this to push the brake pads back in. I will mention also, make sure you have a bucket underneath the bottom. Somebody actually overfilled this brake master cylinder and we have brake fluid leaking. So we're going to put a bucket down the bottom just to catch whatever fluid does come out, so don't go nowhere. Now you're probably asking yourself, how come he knows that the brake fluid is over full? Because when I pushed it in before, it was peeing on the floor already. Alright, so here we go. We're going to push it in all the rest of the way now, so that it's in as far as it can go. Okay, just make sure the piston is pushed all the way back in, and then we'll just take this back off. And what I normally do on this particular vehicle is take the caliper, lay it back in, and mount the top bolt first. You're just going to catch it very loosely. All right, and then just rotate this up to the top like that. It's a little easier doing it this way. All right, then we take our brake pad. Remember, this is on the top. I'm going to do the inside one, and then I'll show you how I did the outside. And you have to hold that pad in place so it doesn't slide back out, because it has the pressure that pulls it right out. What I do is I put this in here like this, and then you catch the top part of the brake in place, and you push it in like that, and then you hold it with your hands, and you rotate your caliper over the top. But before we do that, we are going to put a little bit of grease. Remember, every place that the brake pad touches, a little bit of the synthetic grease. Okay. Next thing we do is rotate the caliper over the top, like that, and then you can let go of the brake pads and push the bottom in place like this. And then we can catch our last bolt on the bottom and screw it down. And then we'll tighten up those 14mm bolts. Now remember what I said. If you're trying to tighten these bolts up and it's spinning in the back, you can hold this with a wrench, but that's not the case here either. All right. So let me just recap what I did. Okay. Here we go. Okay. I just want to point this out too. Make sure that your hardware here is on properly here, as well as in the back right over here. Very important that you have these clips where they belong. All right? Okay. Okay, we cleaned up underneath here where the rotor touches into the hub. We put the rotor back on. We held it on with the lug nut temporarily. We installed our mounting bracket and tightened up the bolts that are here, as well as down on the bottom right here. We installed our new hardware kit here, and we lubricated every place that the brake pad is going to touch is greased. We lubricated our slide pins right here, and we tightened up the bolts in the back right here. We also put lubricant every place that the brake pad touches, and that's it. We're all set. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in the car, we're going to pump the brake pedal up, and that's it. We're all set. All right, any questions or comments, or you need any advice, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about anything. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.